All types of research in psychology involve some element of observation, not just observational studies. For example, when we use self-report measures, we observe the responses of the participant, and when we carry out laboratory experiments, we observe the behaviour of our participants, and so on. Observation studies are a type of study where the researcher observes a situation and records what happens, but this does not manipulate an independent variable. Observational studies therefore tend to be high in ecological validity, as there are no interventions, and if the observer remains undetected, then the method avoids any problems with experimenter effects. On the other hand, observational studies can be difficult to replicate. In an observation, data is collected for observing or watching participants. In the earlier days of psychology, someone had to sit there and watch and take notes. One-way mirrors are now commonly used to observe behaviour. Observational methods include the following. Controlled observation. This takes place in a controlled environment, such as a laboratory. Participants might be given a particular task to do. Naturalistic observation. This takes place in a natural environment, i.e., a situation which is natural for the behaviour the researcher is interested in. A strength of naturalistic observations is that they are high in ecological validity, because the participants are in their own natural environment and so won't respond to demand characteristics or social desirability bias due to high levels of control, as naturalistic observations aren't highly controlled. A possible weakness of naturalistic observations is that if participants realise they're being watched, they may respond to demand characteristics, which therefore makes the observation less valid. Moreover, as it is in the participant's own environment, the environment is not controlled and therefore the study will be harder to replicate. Also, since there is no manipulation of the independent variable, as it is not an experiment, we cannot infer cause and effect. One strength of a controlled observation is that their levels of control are quite high, since the situation is manually created by the researcher and therefore extraneous variables are controlled for. So the observation is reliable and can be repeated again in the same way, i.e. a standardized procedure. A weakness of controlled observations is that the participant is likely to know that they're being observed because the situation is controlled, which could create demand characteristics or social desirability bias, which lowers the validity. Participant observation. This is a special kind of natural observation. The observer becomes a member of the community that he or she is observing. Non-participant observation. This involves observing participants without actively participating. This option is used to understand a phenomenon by entering the community or social system involved while staying separate from the activities being observed. A strength of a participant observation is that it adds to the richness of data, especially if the observer becomes a trusted member of the group that they are observing over a period of time, and is therefore high in validity. Another strength is that there could be access to data which is unobtainable by any other methods, and so more in-depth information is discovered. One weakness of participant observations is that the researcher could alter the group in some way when they join, which lowers the validity. Another potential weakness is observer bias, because the observer is only recording what they want to see, or they could become emotionally involved with the group, and therefore will report observations in a subjective way. One strength of a non-participant observation is that it allows the researcher to see what goes on with their own eyes. They can make judgments and observe body language used. Moreover, the researcher can be more open-minded as they're an outsider looking in, therefore less likely to feel sympathy and therefore less likely to produce biased data. However, a weakness of non-participant observations is that it can lead to the Hawthorne effect, where people act differently as they know they are being observed. Another weakness may be that it could be hard to gain accurate results when watching from a distance and not actually taking part in the activity and being up close and personal with the participants. For each of these observational methods, there are different ways of setting up the observational schedule. Unstructured observation. This is where the observer notes down or records all the behaviour with no predetermined ideas or categories. Structured observation. The observer has a predetermined schedule of observation. This could include event sampling, where the researcher is looking for certain behaviours and a tally chart is kept of every instance of these behaviours, also known as behavioural codes. Time sampling, where the researcher decides in advance to record the behaviour present at a certain time, e.g. minute intervals. One strength of a structured observation is that it produces reliable data, as they can easily be replicated by other researchers using fixed categories, just as the original researcher did. Moreover, this method allows quantitative data to be produced quickly and easily, counting frequency or duration of events that are observed, which means different observations can be directly compared. This allows the researcher to see patterns and relationships. A disadvantage of a structured observation is that there is a lack of validity. Counting frequency, duration, or events does not tell us about their meaning. Events may not fit any of the categories or may overlap several categories. Different observers may also place the same event into different categories. In addition to this, they are only useful for studying small-scale interactions, as a structured observation is an intense method to carry out. Some advantages of unstructured observations are: it provides rich and detailed data, there are unexpected behaviours that are still included, and it provides qualitative data. Some disadvantages could be: it could be easily done to miss behaviour without recording equipment. It's difficult to analyse, hard to replicate, and observers have a tendency to record the most eye-catching or noticeable behaviour that might not be important or relevant to the study. One of the strengths of observational research is that it is high in ecological validity, because quote-unquote real behaviour is being observed, especially where people are unaware that they are being observed. Another strength is that they can produce extremely rich data if unstructured observation or participant observation is used. Moreover, observations tend to be low in demand characteristics where people are unaware of being observed. Also, observations are a useful method for conducting research in situations where it would be difficult to manipulate variables. On the other hand, a weakness of observational research is often a lack of control over variables, as it is difficult to hold extraneous variables constant in a natural observation, although high control is possible in a controlled observation. It is often also difficult to conclude cause and effect relationships, since there are no variables being manipulated. A further weakness is that they can be subject to observer bias, and can also be difficult to ensure inter-rater reliability. Moreover, it can be difficult to replicate natural observations, as the circumstances may be unique. However, a good replication of a controlled observation is often possible. In addition, there are a number of ethical issues that arise from covert observations, including deception, informed consent, and other considerations.
I hope this video has proven helpful for you. If you want more psychology videos like this, remember to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you for watching!